I get the fear because I've grown up with it, but there's nothing to be afraid of. It really is the opposite of the narrative that's given. Like, it does take a bit of courage. So if you're wanting to be a man, I'd say, like, have the courage to cry.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Academy podcast with the #1 international best-selling author and multi-award winning success and life coach, Kamil Shah. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking this opportunity to grow together with me, Kamil Shah, and my guests on this program. Each episode of the Academy podcast is filled with insights and wisdom from my guests, which I believe can have a profound impact on the way we live our lives. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Academy podcast. And today I am super excited because I have a good friend of mine, another co-author of the #1 best-selling book on Amazon, Authentic, Courageous Humans Who Change Our Lives by Rewriting the Story. And I'm going to bring him right in. So today, joining me is David Sacha. David is a passionate and driven individual. He's the co-owner of Akton LLC, a digital design consultancy. He's also an artist, dancer, and a persistent seeker of growth. David is also the co-author of Authentic, Courageous Humans Who Change Their Lives by Rewriting Their Story. In his chapter, David discusses a journey that awakened him to his fear of self-love. Since then, therapy, friends, and new experiences have helped him rewrite his story. David attended an all-male Catholic high school where he was required to go on a 3-day retreat called Kairos. This retreat was a safe space for young boys to express emotions, many for the first time. He later returned to lead and share his own story with classmates and teachers. Now, looking back, Kairos was essentially group therapy. Kairos taught him the importance of vulnerability. David, now 26, uses what he's learned to help other men express emotions. He does this through his @man.i.feel Instagram page, where he publicly shares his feelings. Most recently, David became an international best-selling author when the co-authored book, Authentic, Courageous Humans Who Change Their Lives by Rewriting Their Story, hit #1 on the Amazon charts across the globe. Welcome, David.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So David, just before we start, again, like I've been mentioning to other co-authors, it's super special because this book somehow has brought all these people with their journeys, with their stories together. And, you know, David, before this, we've never connected, but through the book, it's a blessing that we've, connected, and I've read your chapter. Really super special chapter. We'll come to that in a minute. Because it's really super special because I actually resonated with it a lot. So on that note, David, if you don't mind sharing with people tuning in your journey to writing the chapter.
So after the events of what I talk about in the chapter, I decided to seek therapy, and that was really the catalyst that eventually led to where I am now. Like, going to therapy led me to wanting to seek out other avenues of growth. I eventually got involved with a group called the TAT Lab, which is the Angry Therapists, group therapy sessions that are hosted on Zoom classes. And from there, I met Christina Wellsom, the publisher, and she was like, "You'd be a great author for this book." So I was like, why not? Might as well. And it seemed like a really awesome opportunity. And I knew that story was something I had wanted to share about. And that was kind of what led to me doing this chapter. I often like to take leaps of faith too. So,
but that's great though. I mean, that's one of the beauty where on many of the previous conversations that I've had, you get to a certain stage in life where because you're in an awakened state, you are able to take that next step. Whereas before, doubt and fear and everything come into play. Whereas when you're already, like you're saying in the bio, you're a seeker of growth. When you seek growth, that's naturally the next step. It's like, okay, I'm curious. Let's go for it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And another thing with that is even like my own identity towards myself, as like, I never saw myself as a writer or author. Like English class wasn't my favorite growing up. And so I've always had kind of an image like, oh, I'm not a book writer. I'm not going to write my own or do anything like that. But I'm oftentimes presented with things that prove myself wrong. And this is another one of those situations where not letting my own identities define what I want to do.
Absolutely. Just off the back of that, I want to come back to the chapter itself, because this chapter is super special, because as I mentioned at the beginning, I resonated with it a lot. And I really, I was really engaged in, I felt the chapter in the sense that as I was reading it, I was imagining myself in that situation. It's almost like a movie reel, because it's almost, why I say that is because I've been in that situation before. Mm-hmm. And it's been a long time since I've connected with my own story. When I was reading your story, I was like, oh, damn, that period had happened to me before. I guess, all the emotions kind of came back. But what was interesting was that I was able to look at it from a different lens, almost, same story, but different appreciation, I guess, of what had happened.
Right.
Again, not giving too much away to the listeners tuning in. I want them to go and buy the book and find out for themselves. But the core theme is about self-love. If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about what self-love now means to you and why is it important?
Self-love to me has now become like one of my cornerstones, and having like moved past it, like the fear of it, it's really opened up so many just doors for me, and like healing. And I feel a big aspect of it that I even more recently kind of came to understand is it's like you can literally just love yourself and give yourself the love that you're seeking from other people. And like looking back at the times that were mentioned in that book, like I was just desperately seeking it from so many other places. And there's just so much anxiety and fear that would surround that. And seeing that really made me like, oh, I don't need to do this. It feels so much better to know I'm here for me and then meet people where they're at, which allows me to meet great people or meet people who are going through a rough time. And either way, I'm okay. And I'm not, my own boat isn't being thrown to the wayside, and I'm not sacrificing myself. I can still be there for other people, which is a really big cornerstone of mine. But that's not the same as like totally neglecting yourself, because you still need to like be alive, be well, be good if you want to help other people. Broken down car isn't going to take anybody anywhere. You got to get it fixed.
Yeah,
so if you really want to take people places, fix your car.
That's right.
So I feel that's a big aspect of it for me, is to just, now that I'm not afraid, I just do it. And it's almost really hard. It's like really hard to describe, honestly, but even going so far as just being like, I love you, David, just saying it and telling myself that and feeling it, it's brought me to a completely different place from where I was in that chapter.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, David. It's, again, like I said, when I was reading that, it brought up so many things for me as well. But now upon reflection and upon looking back at it, I love what you mentioned there in the last few minutes. You said about meeting people where they are. And that's one of the key things which, for me, when I reflect on my own story, was missing when I was in that situation at that time, where I was not meeting them where they were. I was I was asking all the wrong questions, why did this happen? Have I done something wrong? Have I, you know, as you've mentioned in the chapter, you were walking on thin ice, walking on eggshells 24/7. And it's not a nice space to be in.
No.
I remember I even I guess developed anxiety and stress, and my even manifested physically because I used to have severe asthma, and my asthma attacks came back. I didn't know why, right? So all these things were happening.
Wow.
It was snowballing. And what you mentioned there was really interesting. You mentioned about meeting people where they are. So that, in that sense, to look at it objectively. And I guess one of the key things is kind of difficult when you're in that situation. It's kind of difficult to detach yourself. It's super hard because you're ingrained. You're ingrained in the whole emotion of it, and you're trying to find answers, and you're not getting the answers, and that's even more frustrating. I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more about your chapter there.
I think something that's coming up for me with what you're saying, and it, like, in relation to the chapters, a lot of my stress and anxiety was due to my own expectation of who I wanted this person to be, or who I had hoped they would be. And I had built up my own narrative about who she was, and I wanted her to be that. And when she wasn't that, I didn't want to look at that because, or I was like, hopefully this is just something we can work through, or, stuff happens and people make mistakes, or, and something I do mention in the chapter is if I'm able to just prove myself, she'll understand and change her mind and see that I'm a good person and want to act in a different way than she is. And learning to not just notice those expectations, but to work, let them go, has played a huge role in changing the way I approach relationships and seeing the identities that we put on other people. So we already mentioned, meeting people where they're at. If they're not where you want them to be, that's not their fault. That they're doing their best. So then you put this expectation on them. So the person I talk about in the chapter, I don't hate them. They were where they are. They have a certain view of me, and I can't control that. So there's nothing I can do about that. And focusing on the things I can control is the best I can expect from myself. So,
and for the benefit of people tuning in, the chapter is based on, we mentioned about self-love, but the overarching theme is about relationship. And when I read it, it's relationship is not only relationship with others, it's you kind of come back to the relationship with your own self, where you talk about self-love and giving to yourself first before you're able to give to others. There was a line in there which is really interesting. You mentioned about you have to be selfish first before you can be selfless. Which is sometimes a bit challenging for people to understand, because you start off by saying we're supposed to be selfless, right? But how can you be selfless if you're not able to be to love yourself first before you can give love? So I found that really, really interesting, and that's why I kind of really resonate when I started reading it. I was like, wow, this is this is very familiar. And I started kind of thinking about past past relationships and stuff like that. And I think people tuning in again, which is why I'm really encouraging people to go ahead and purchase the book, because it I sat down with the chapter, and I really kind of and the way you wrote it, David, dude, you're a super author, man. I'm like, I was like, wow, each line is loaded. So I was reading each line twice. Cool. Because I was like, okay, there's he's trying to say something, but there's something much deeper in this line. I have to read it again. Wow, it's amazing.
That makes me really happy to hear that.
It's awesome, man. Awesome. David, I just want to read out, if you don't mind, just one line.
Please do.
Which I found really interesting. Okay, this one I put a bookmark here. It says, I loved her, but I did not love myself enough to know I deserved to not be treated this way. Okay, I'm going to read it again. I loved her, but I did not love myself enough to know I deserve to not be treated this way. So that was really powerful for me. That's where I think that line for me captured everything, the essence of your chapter about relationship, or the projection that you mentioned about projecting your aspirations on someone else, whatever it is, someone else, something else, your projection on something else, outward projection, and that not being reciprocated. And you're kind of questioning, why is that? And it's possibly because you're not looking into yourself first before you can give it to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And because so much of my expectation was built on, if I'm selfless, good things will come to me, instead of setting the boundary, the expectation that I be treated a certain way. But to treat yourself a certain way, you have to know how you want to be treated, which means you have to love yourself to know how you want to be loved, instead of expecting other people to do it for you. And there can be a dynamic in that, but in the chapter, in that situation, it was very clear. It's like, she's not treating me the way I deserve to be treated, and I don't need this in my life. And that was really what changed the narrative for me. Yeah, I deserve better.
Yeah, like I said, when I was reading that, it felt like a movie. So
really glad.
Again, the way that a real life one, right?
Right.
Because the way that you wrote it, that's why I'm saying it's so powerful. And each stage, I'm following each stage. The going back and forth, and I'm pretty sure if it was a movie, the audience would be saying, "Dude, come on, man, dude," but you can't. But that's life, and I'm again, why I'm saying that. I'm saying that is because when I'm thinking about what happened to me before, I'm looking at it now and saying, Kamil, come on, man. There's so many signs here. Come on, But the key thing was about the self-love. That's where things change, because when you understand that, when you have introspection, you go in and think about, how am I treating myself? And when you bring it back to yourself, then you're able to kind of detach yourself from the situation. And that's where, sometimes people say that time heals things. But I never really understood that notion until I equate it to actually, it gives you time to love yourself first. Then you're able to understand and put things into perspective. Because when you're in the thick of things, it's kind of difficult to make sense of anything.
Oh yeah,
because you're so involved.
Seeing the forest through the trees and all that, it's really hard.
Amazing.
And absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to hear that it had such an impact, and the way you're describing it is really means a lot.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. So David, I just want to come to your work right now. You mentioned about you have a graphic design consultancy, and also you're doing amazing work with helping other men express their feelings. So if you don't mind touching on those two things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Actin, our business, so we're a design consultancy. We do all kinds of we do industrial design, so product design, sketching, and modeling as well. And we did the cover.
And you did the cover. I've got the cover here, so you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the cover. That is awesome. It's such an amazing,
great opportunity cover there. Yeah, I was really hoping we'd be able to do that. We managed to work that out, and we do website stuff. We do branding as well. and graphics like on the cover. And yeah, we do a lot of pretty diverse set of stuff, and it's me and my roommate and I. We kind of someone who I'm really grateful for that's in my life, and friends from college, and we are kind of the dynamic duo. On our website, actin.blue, it mentions we're like Swiss Army knives because we have so many skills that we can do, and we work well together because where I lack, he excels. Where he lacks, I excel, and we mesh really well in that way and are able to do so much together. It's something I'm really grateful for. And the Man I Feel Instagram was something that came up because really inspired by like John Kim and the books he writes, and also Justin Baldoni, who wrote We Are Man Enough and has his own platform. And, you know, he's an actor, so he's got a much bigger platform than I do.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I'm a regular guy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy, and I can share the way I feel. And I feel like that's also another voice that can be added to this conversation of men expressing the way they feel. So I was nervous about doing it at first because, like, you know, will I have enough followers for it to even matter? And, you know, but at this point, I'm like, I'm just sharing, and whoever wants to see it is welcome to listen. And hopefully it reaches and shows other men like, hey, you can express this stuff. And it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't say anything about your masculinity. If anything, from my opinion, it says a lot. It says good things about your masculinity if you're able to. And that's, yeah, so that's where that manifested from. It's just wanting to normalize that because we do feel it, and it's good and important to express these things. Otherwise, they get pent up, and that's where resentment comes from, or like explosive anger or other things that are characteristically seen as male negative things.
Amazing. And again, I wanted to thank you for taking that initiative, David, because I feel there's not enough out there yet to not, I guess, outlets or, you know, opportunities for men to come and express themselves emotionally. And I think, you know, again, thank you for doing this and taking the initiative and having a mission to help other men as well. Why I'm saying is because I'm a man, and, you know, growing up, growing up in my family, you were told to don't cry, right? Not cry, you know, suck it up and just move on. You know, no, you should just just keep it in, and suck it up and move on. And yeah, I remember, you know, but I wanted to cry when I was young, right? I mean, it hurts, you know, whatever it is, physically, or, you know, if it was emotionally, I wanted to cry, but I couldn't, right? You would just say, you know, enough, stop crying, you know, wipe the tears away, and you didn't even talk about it. You didn't.
Yep.
You can't talk about how you feel.
Taught not to process it.
Yeah. So that's why I guess, you know, as a child, if you're growing up in that environment, like you're saying, as it goes on and on and on, there's no avenue for you to, and you don't understand that there is an avenue, or it is allowed to express and talk about your feelings, right? Because, you know, it was frowned upon to do so when you were growing up. So thank you, David, for doing this. And, you know, I'm completely 100% in support of what you're doing. Like I say, you know, I'm truly grateful for what you're doing right now.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm glad that it's helping. And I just want to keep adding to this narrative. It's like, I love that you brought up crying, because crying is a really important thing to me. And for, you know, and even now at times there's a little bit of like, ooh, I need to hold this back. But more and more I'm like, no, this is okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. Whether it's because I am sad because of something bad happening, or a lot of times I have tears of joy because something overwhelms me in a good way. And I'm like really just grateful for something and with the way it worked out or whatever. And I cry, or I see something in a movie that's really affects me. I'll cry, and it's good. And like, I think because I'm so comfortable with it, I'm almost like, why would you not want to do this? And because it
Yeah,
lets it out.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I get the fear because I've grown up with it, but at this point, like there's nothing to be afraid of, and it really is the opposite of the narrative that's given. Like, it does take a bit of courage to cry. So if you're wanting to be a man, I'd say like have the courage to cry, especially in front of others, and to know that you're not any less for doing so.
Do you
So that's my
feel?
thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And just want to ask, do you feel that it's a generational thing? Because from my conversations with people, that it
Mhm.
tends to be the case. It's a generational thing, whereas before, parents' generation, it was clear cut. The man should behave in a certain way, and the lady of the house should behave in a certain way, and
Mhm.
you weren't allowed to do certain things, like we talked about, to express your feeling as a man, as a boy.
Yeah, I it's absolutely like a generational like trauma or whatever. It's because, and it, like I totally understand. Like, it's the way people were taught. It's the tools that they had available to them. So I definitely have a lot of empathy for men that have that deep fear, because that is what they were taught, is to not process this stuff. And their dads, and even, I've even seen women that kind of will look down on a man for expressing feelings. So even from their standpoint, there's a level of ingrained like expectation of how a man is meant to act or not act, and what is acceptable and not acceptable for a man to do. And it's just so normalized in society that that's the way it is. And thankfully that is beginning to change. But yeah, it's absolutely just a product of some necessity, or I would argue whether it was necessary. But if, they were doing the best that they thought at the time, that they need to be the stoic male that doesn't like waver and is there, the pillar for the family. That was the solution they came to, and it's resulted in the way we are now. Why keep doing the same old thing? But yeah, definitely a generational thing, I would say.
I like what you mentioned just now at the tail end of that, about it doesn't have to be the same way. You don't have to continue what has happened before in your journey. And that's something that I've found, that I'm able to say again, like you're saying, look at it objectively and saying, well,
Hmm.
that was what they knew, and they were doing their best, to empathize and say, look, it's okay, they did their best, but I don't need to do the same as what happened before. So, for example, expressing the way that I feel and talking about it with the family. Like, I've got kids now, and I'm teaching them, or not teaching them. I'm just engaging with them and saying, look, how do you
Hmm.
feel? How do you feel about this? I'm constantly asking, just to make sure that they feel comfortable enough from a young age to be able to express how they feel, regardless
That's
of,
awesome.
yeah, regardless of being, a girl or a boy, but just as a human being. How do you feel? I mean,
Yes,
just let me know.
absolutely.
I'm here. Oh, I'm here for you.
No, that's really awesome, because they need to know it's like it's okay to feel these things, because all these feelings are new to them. And so you're setting the example, like, hey, you're feeling this, that's okay. Like, and I think that's another big thing that's misunderstood, that I'm still learning to understand, is the dynamics of like the negative emotions. Like, anger is a big one that I'm still trying to navigate for myself. Like, what do I do with this? What is a healthy way to express this? Because certain examples in my life have really taught me to, like, I don't ever want to be an angry person. But that comes to a point of where I'm like, I just won't feel angry, but like, well, I'm still angry. I'm just suppressing it. So what's a healthy, okay way to let that out. And there's all kinds of ways, like movement or just venting, but feeling it. Like if you're angry, be angry. That's okay. And letting a kid, understand that early on will set them up for like with so much more tools in the future to be like, hey, I'm angry and that's okay. Let's like, where's this coming from? Why? I could go on a run or dance around a bit to let it out and then address this with the person that's making me feel this way instead of pushing it in and then it comes up somewhere else, because it will come up. It always comes up. So like learning those dynamics it's a journey for sure. And I'm glad to hear that you're walking your kids through that journey. It's really important.
And you mentioned about anger as well as one of the kind of key feelings, and being okay with expressing it. It's just in the same way that, if we're being told when we're young, don't cry, i.e. don't express the emotions that you're feeling, in the same way that, you can't be going around and tables turn and say, you can't be angry. Because again, like you're saying, you're suppressing the feeling, and that is, you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing. So being okay with expressing them, but the key thing that you've mentioned there is, how do you express them? How do you navigate and translate those emotions in a healthy way? So that's interesting. You mentioned a few things there, going out for a run, or you're trying different things. But you mentioned about dancing. Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, you mentioned that you like to dance as well.
Oh, I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been great because, and especially because of some of the examples that have been set for me, I gravitated towards the creative field. I'm an artist, and so I guess if we're speaking like purely from a stereotypical standpoint, like dancing is considered not necessarily a masculine thing to do. Part of what maybe sparked the love for it for me was being involved in marching band at high school and other things. And 3 years ago, I met who would be my dance teacher. And like, it was like, I didn't know I really wanted to do it, but after a few classes, like, I love this. This is awesome. And it felt like something I had been doing for years because of how, like, it's like, I think I knew I wanted to do it. I just didn't have the time. And then I just obsessed over it for like a year and a half, and was going out dancing like as often as I could. And this was like before COVID. And I was going out like maybe 3 or 4 times a week.
Awesome.
Just learning and figuring it out. And I definitely have a lot more to learn, but I do feel I can confidently say like I'm good enough. I can have fun, and with various skill levels as well. And it's been just something that brings me a lot of joy, and it's an expression, and I'm happy dancing with anyone that wants to dance. And something I love about it is like so many people are better at dancing than they think they are. And especially when we're talking like partner dancing, because I've had partners that were like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I get them moving and they're great. They're fine. Like they're not like falling all over the place. Like they're doing great and it's fun. So to me, it's like, it doesn't have to be this like super like amazing thing. You just have fun and it's good. That's a big part of like what really fits well with me is I can approach it from so many different angles. Like whether I am with someone who is skilled, that it's a different feeling, but it's still fun and I get to do different things. And with someone that's less skilled, it's a different experience, but still fun in its own way. And one other thing that I love about dancing from a relation standpoint, I've learned you can really pick up on someone by dancing with them. And I would learn like, oh, I don't know that I really fit well with this person just by dancing with them, like, and barely saying a few words, just because there's certain people where it's like immediately click and we're doing a lot of stuff and it goes really well. Others are a little more critical and I don't like that because I'm adamant about being skilled, but also we're not in a competition. So let's like, just relax. It's fine.
Chill.
And they're allowed to be that way. It's just like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'll know that like immediately, like once we start dancing, the way they approach it. And it's amazing how quickly you just know versus like you learn things that you would otherwise need like weeks of conversation to figure out. just about their personality and how well it meshes with yourself. And so I'm really adamant about dance in that regard. Like, if you want to learn about people, go learn how to dance, or partner dancing specifically. But yeah, it's been a really just amazing thing that's been added to my life in the last 3 years now. And I'm grateful for it.
Wow, amazing. And as you were describing dancing as part of your life now, I'm just putting two and two together. You talked about your business partner, and you want to say chemistry or whatever it is when you call it, but there is that kind of dynamic of working with someone else. Be it you talked about your company, but you're talking about kind of dancing as well, your dance partner. And that whole notion of working with someone else and finding that kind of connection dynamic with that other person, where you can say, look, fine, even though I'm lacking in certain skill set, you can compensate, and vice versa. But we're working together, and bouncing ideas off each other. If you're talking about your graphic design company, or you're just enjoying the moment when you're dancing. And I think that's really critical, to have that kind of understanding. It's very subtle, but it makes a heck of a difference, when it comes to being in a business context, or dance floor, or even relationship, I guess.
The word that comes to mind for me with all of that is trust. I trust my business partner because we were best friends first, and we've always been there for each other. And we like when I was going through some rough stuff in school, he gave me what time he could. And when a lot of my friends just didn't, despite how I was really there for them. And so he's shown me his authenticity, and that vibe, as you might call it, I trust it, and we've just worked well together. So that dynamic between the two of us, it's all based on trust, because I know he's there for me, and I can rely on him, and we mesh really well together. So with dancing, it's once I have I'll use the word vibe. I know that it is a good vibe. I trust it, and I don't question. It's this good, let's go. And not needing to intellectualize it at all. It just is. And I think that's, that trust is a really important aspect, because when you rely on that, it's if you relate this back to relationships, if you know who that person is, all these other anxieties and fears are periphery stuff that would just get in the way of that. But if you can just lean into it, go with the movements, and let go of some of the what ifs, you start dancing.
Wow, I love the way that you I love the way that you framed it there. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, David. That's poetry, man.
Thank you. It just came to me now. So I'm connecting these dots as I'm talking about it.
Awesome. That's your next book, hopefully. Start with that.
Yep.
Awesome, man. David, we're just, I'm just starting to enjoy this conversation, but we're just coming to the end of the show. Time's just flown by. I'm just really, enjoying the conversation. I hope you guys tuning in are finding this useful. And David, I hope you're, enjoying it as well. David, before we move on, for the purpose of people tuning in, how can they connect with the work that you're doing, both your graphic design work, and also Man I Feel?
So if you want, you can visit our website, actin.blue, to see our work and contact us if you want any work done. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's DJ SHOCKA, kind of the phonetic spelling of my last name. And then I definitely would encourage you to follow my Instagram at man.i.feel. And yeah, connect with me. I'd love to hear from other men and their experiences and things that they wish they could express, or just anything that they're feeling. And so hearing more of that I'd love to hear more of it. And however anyone wants to connect with me, it's appreciated.
And we'll include all the social media handles and also David's website in the description of this episode. And again, a shout out to the men out there who are listening, connect with David and express yourself. Like myself, I'm this is still new territory for me, to be honest, right? But I'm taking it one day at a time, to be able to be more vulnerable with my emotions, my feelings, and to be able to share it with people. That's the key, to be able to share it with people. So before we go, we're gonna go to the quick 5 question round. David, are you okay to do this?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So first question is, David, what is your favorite word?
Vulnerability. Yeah, for sure. It's the key to all of this. Just being vulnerable and leaning into it. Like whether it's loving yourself or someone else or dancing, being able to put yourself out there, you got to be vulnerable. And you can't do anything unless you do that.
Great word and great advice as well. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Question number 2, what are you currently reading or listening to?
Codependent No More. That's was where I was at now. And I'm listening to the 4 Agreements next.
Okay, so question number 3. If you could meet someone either living or past, who would that be?
Rainer Maria Rilke. He is a poet from early 1900s, and he has this book called Letters to a Young Poet. And I was getting into poetry and thought it sounded like a good thing to read, but it became so much more than that because he's just has an understanding of life and relationships that I almost feel he shouldn't have because of the time, but he understands things in a way that only a poet could. And I would love to just pick his brain and hear his thoughts. And I think that would be a really awesome experience.
Oh man, awesome. Okay, David, so question number 4. What advice would you give to the younger David?
That you are enough and you deserve the love that you're worthy of. That's all it needs to be. Keep it simple.
Wow. Powerful reminder. And I think, everyone listening in can relate and take away from that. So great advice. And last question number 5. What can we expect from David in the next 5 years?
Definitely having the business developed as I go. I do want to write a book. I've been working on it when I can. I definitely need to put some more time into it, but I will also be doing a lot of woodworking. I picked that up again. I did it in college, but now I have the means to do it again. So you'll probably see more of that. Yeah. Also, who knows? I like to, sometimes things just come to me. So even I don't know what I'll be doing in 5 years, but it'll be good stuff. So.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's like, again, I go back to what we talked about earlier. When you're in a state of awareness and being able to see things, all these other things which you haven't thought about just come your way, and you're just intrigued and say, okay, let's do it. It's no longer something that holds you back. It's you're more open to opportunities than ever before. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. So I've actually seen a few of your posts on Instagram, your woodwork lately. So that's awesome. I think the latest one, you just completed a project. If you don't mind describing a little bit about that.
I think you're referring to the mallet, right?
The mallet, yeah. I think I posted Thor or something like that on the
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like a joiner's mallet. It's kind of like I was like, I could buy one, but it makes way more sense for me to just build this. And so I had some wood and threw that together. It's kind of like a basic thing you use for woodworking, because I'm using like hand tools, like a hand plane and chisels, because I don't have power tools because those are expensive. And
but it's a work of art, man. It's so beautifully crafted. If you haven't seen it, I don't know if you have it on your page or was it on the story, but it's really, really beautifully crafted. You can tell that it's not machine made; it's handmade, because of the way that the way that it's been crafted. So I really appreciate it because why I like it because when I was at university as well in doing architecture, we had a workshop. We had steel workshop and woodworking workshop. So we had to make our
Hmm.
model physical models in wood or steel or concrete.
Hmm.
So that's why I appreciate things like this. Things that people make with their hands. There's so much energy and thought and creativity that goes into it. So that's why I like it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I was a woodshop technician at my school for 4 years, and I miss all the tools that we had there for sure. But everything I'm doing now, I'm like, man, I really didn't appreciate all the stuff I had available to me. But it's such a fun and thing to be involved in, and I'm really excited for the projects that I have coming up. Another thing I had finished recently was I did a frame for a friend of mine. So it's like I can do that because I also paint. So now I'm a one-stop shop for that. Do the
Wow.
painting and the frame and
Awesome.
call it a day. So it's good. There's a lot of things that can come from that.
Oh, amazing. I love that. I love that. So many amazing things coming up. So I can't wait. Can't wait.
Same here.
Okay, David. So before we go, any last words of wisdom and or advice that you want to give to people tuning in?
I think I pretty much said everything, but just reiterate, love yourself. The only person stopping you is yourself. Give yourself that love that you want from other people.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. So that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Academy podcast with David Sacha. I'm Kamil Shah, and until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace and love from me. Bye-bye for now. Until the next episode.
All right, see you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you are. My sincere hope is that this episode has not only resonated with you, but also given you some invaluable tips and strategies to improve your life. Don't forget to share your comments with me. As you know, I love to hear your views. Also, remember to follow the Academy, follow me, my guests, and tag us on our social media handles, which will be provided in the description. Most importantly, please leave a review and let me know that you've heard this podcast and how it has impacted you. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace and love from me always.